already had a lot of, depending on where I stood in the first session, there was a lot of feedback coming out of the seat. So luckily we don't have to deal with that anymore. We got that resolved. So that is an added bonus. Maybe I will not be as distracted in this afternoon session. And if you were here for the morning session, I do apologize for you having to hear my rundown briefly about how I came to be here. If you have walked through the hallways yesterday and today and looked at the posters, you may notice that I'm not on the poster, and I look a little bit different than Dr. Pavan Mulgun that was supposed to give this talk today. He was to conduct, he's a colleague of mine, and he was to conduct the workshop this evening, but he had something come up and he was not able to attend. So I'm glutton for punishment and decided that I would volunteer to help him out on about 2 weeks' notice. And so here I am. I have not had the most time to prepare for these workshops. I met with him last week and I got his material last Wednesday, last Thursday. So I've had just at a week, if not a little less than a week, to prepare for these workshops. So if you see me using my notes as a crutch, that's why. It's because this is his research and his talk, his material that I am giving on his behalf. So at the end of the workshop, I'll bring up his information. If you have any questions that I'm not able to answer, you can feel free to reach out to him via email and see if he can help you with that, answer those questions. So again, I apologize if I use my notes a little too much as a crutch. When I am teaching, I try to, somebody open that door. Somebody's at the door. I don't know if it's locked or what. Well, maybe we're locked in too. Oh no. There we go. Okay. Thank you. But when I'm teaching, I lost my train of thought. We had the door instance. I completely forgot what I was talking about. But anyway, oh yeah, my notes. So I try not to use my notes as a crutch. I always hate, one of my pet peeves when I was a student at university is when I would have a professor that did nothing but read their PowerPoints. I would call that PowerPoint karaoke, because that's all they would want to do is just read. And what's the point of being there when you can just get that information and read that at home yourself, right? So I will do my best not to do that today, but also keep in mind, I just saw this material a few days ago, and I have to talk for about 3.5 hours on it. So given that, there will be plenty of times when I will refer to my notes to make sure that I'm giving you the information that Pavan, that Dr. Mulgun wanted you to know. All right, a little bit about myself before we get started. My name is Robert Rose. I am a professor at the University of Memphis in Memphis, Tennessee, the U.S. How many of you have heard of Memphis, Tennessee? One. One person. How many of you have heard of Elvis? What, two? Nobody? Okay, FedEx? Okay. FedEx, that's where FedEx is headquartered in Memphis. The founder, Fred Smith, just passed away a few weeks ago, and his funeral was held in Memphis. He died in Memphis. The company's headquartered in Memphis. It is the world headquarters. Anybody heard of International Paper? If you haven't heard of them, I'm sure you use their products. They are a huge multinational corporation that makes a lot of paper goods like paper cups, cardboard boxes, shipping materials, and their world headquarters are in Memphis, Tennessee as well. So it is, Memphis is in the U.S., it's in the southern U.S. It is the logistics hub for the United States because of its central location. And anyway, I am a professor there in the Management Information Systems Department in the College of Business. I've been there for about 17 years. And Dr. Mulgun came to me about 2 weeks ago and said, hey, I've got to give 2 workshops, 2 talks in a couple of weeks, and I'm not able to go. Could you go for me? And I said, yeah, sure, that's no problem. Oh, by the way, it's in Malaysia. Okay, I'll still go. Oh, and it's 2 talks, and they're about 2 hours apiece. Okay, that's fine. And then I signed the contract and all that, and I find out, no, it's a little bit more than 2 hours. So either way, I'm not too happy with Pavan right now. But no, all kidding aside, I'm glad to be able to step in for him. So today we're going to talk about developing effective tests for assessing ethical principles in AI systems. So what does that mean? AI is huge, as we know, it's everywhere. I'm sure everybody's already using AI in one way, shape, or form. And we have been actually for years and years and years. AI did not just come about when ChatGPT came onto the scene in November a few years ago. AI has been around for a while. You know, I don't have to give you a history lesson to tell you that the term artificial intelligence was coined in the 1950s. Alan Turing. Everybody's heard of Alan Turing, the Turing test, right? We had artificial intelligence in theory back then. We just didn't have the tools, the mechanisms to put it into place at that time because of technology limitations. We were bound by transistors and vacuum tubes and capacitors and technology at that moment. So we did not have the capabilities to fully develop AI in practice until very recently when networking and chips gave us that ability. We, early on, in the recent decades, have been using AI in simple things like, I guess, rudimentary scale from algorithms to suggesting things for us to spell check, to autocomplete, things along those lines. But we really didn't think about that as AI in a full artificial generative AI perspective. And it wasn't until really OpenAI released ChatGPT that kind of turned the corner for us. And everybody now, if anybody in here is as old as me and remembers the 1990s and the internet, the dot-com boom, the world changed when the internet came around. And everything was just dramatically different. And that's very much what we're seeing, if not more so now, with artificial intelligence. And so along with that becomes a lot of expectations from all of us. Developers are being expected to develop more systems, more complex systems that have a lot more integrations, that do a lot more things. Testers are being expected to test these systems and to integrate a lot of this AI into their systems, and to do so in a well manner to make sure that they're effective, that they're ethical, that they have very little privacy concerns, that they have little security concerns. Those are all things that we're being tasked with ensuring. Ethical testing is something that may not get a lot of attention, but it is extremely, extremely important. And so that's what we will be talking, focused on today, is how to create or how to create effective tests for assessing those principles. So let me go to my notes to make sure I'm not forgetting anything on this first slide here. Now we're seeing, even before the ChatGPT days, we were seeing AI put its hands into our everyday lives. If anyone has applied for a job in the past few years, again, even before ChatGPT, you are familiar with these applicant tracking systems that you create your resume, you fill out an application, you submit that online, and that tracking system determines whether or not you meet the criteria to actually be seen by a person, by an individual in your human resources department. We see this a lot with our insurance companies, whether it's your automobiles, our health insurance, the U.S. I will refer a lot to the U.S. because that's where I'm from, and we have our problems there that I like to point out. We have no universal health care. People talk about the U.S. like it's great, and it has its good things, but one of the disadvantages to the U.S. is we have no universal health care. So I have twins. That's why I said that in the morning session. That's why I have no hair, and my beard is great. I have twins that are 7 years old, 2 girls, and they stress me out. But I love them, but man, they love to fight with each other. But again, we have no healthcare, no universal healthcare system. So when we have children in the U.S., first you have to make sure you have insurance, health insurance, because if you don't, you might be stuck with a bill in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars just to deliver children, and that's just not including any of the challenges that come with that. One of my twins, when she was born, her lungs weren't fully developed, so she had to stay in the hospital for about a week, and I can't remember how many tens of thousands of dollars that hospital bill was. So I'm getting off on a tangent, talking about healthcare, but AI is integrated into our healthcare system through insurance, at least in the US, because artificial intelligence is now being used to look at your individual patient, your health records, and determine based off of your pre-existing conditions, what things you may have had prior. It looks at your body type. It looks at your age and all these different factors to determine how much of a risk you are and how much you have to pay them, how much your premium is. And the problem with that we will talk about today is that AI, as we know, is not perfect. It has hallucinations anyway, but it also has biases. And it has biases because we as humans have biases. I talked about this in the morning session. No matter how hard we try, we have these innate biases as humans. Now, they can be more pronounced in some than others, but we want things to look nice. We want things to make sense in our minds. We instantly have biases. And humans, no matter where you're from or what your background is, humans make decisions every day, and sometimes those decisions are based on those biases. The problem is, and how that integrates with artificial intelligence, is that when we train our LLMs on previous decisions, on historical evidence, that's being trained on some of these biases. And so whenever we have healthcare decisions that are being made based off of historical data, oftentimes that means that those decisions are biased, that they're being denied coverage, or you're being asked to pay a higher premium, pay more on your insurance, because you might be a female, or you might be of a certain age, or from a different part of the world, or a different part of your country. And so how do we look at that? How do we address those issues? And those are some of the things that we will talk about today. We will address whether those decisions are fair or unfair, whether they are safe or unsafe, and even if they're invisible. Because oftentimes these decisions are being made and no one can tell you why. When you go to put in that application and that applicant tracking system is seeing your resume or your CV and you don't get through, do you know why? No. You just know you didn't get called or an email. When your insurance goes up, you don't really know why. The decision's just being made and you're not made aware of those reasons why. So we're going to talk about some of that. When I was talking with Dr. Mulgund about doing this presentation, we met for about an hour, about all the time I got. But we were meeting, and one of the things that he brought up, a story that he told me, is Target, the retail store in the U.S., they had a scenario where they knew that a 16-year-old girl was pregnant before she even knew she was pregnant, simply based on her shopping habits. She wasn't buying a pregnancy test. She wasn't buying anything indicative of being pregnant. But it was able to put together just the things that she was purchasing and knew that she was pregnant. And when the time, when this was, I can't remember the how we even knew this, but when Target was asked about, how they knew these things, they couldn't or wouldn't tell the family or tell people. And so that's a concern. Like, we have now industry, we have companies that know more about our lives than we know. And is that right? Is that ethical? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. So anyway, we'll address some of those today. All right, so there are two things that we want to talk about explicitly as AI becomes more embedded into your business operations. First, again, as I've talked about, is biases. So the biases do exist. We have to figure out how to address those whenever these models reflect the biases that is picked up from humans. Second is opacity. So how much is something opaque, or how clear are those decisions that are made by the system? How can people interpret the decisions that are being made? And are they able to challenge those decisions? When a machine or an algorithm, a system, makes a decision that impacts your life, if it's a human that does it, oftentimes you have the opportunity to challenge that, to appeal it. But when AI does that, you can't really go to ChatGPT and argue with them over it, or have a friendly debate about that. So bias and opacity. So why does this matter? Why are those two things important? Well, I would hope that we would understand biases and why that is important. Think about if a hiring algorithm determines, for whatever reason, that for a specific job, a specific position, that male applicants are the preferred gender, and it will not allow female applicants through. How is that right, and how is that fair? And this isn't just conjecture. This isn't just something I've made up. This is a real case that I'll talk about in a minute concerning Amazon. So, what do we do in that instance where people are applying for jobs and they are not getting an interview simply because they're a female? Or Maybe because they're from a different part of the country, or a different part of the world, or a different nationality. You know, there's all kinds of biases. And again, those biases exist because of historically skewed data. And that's, again, it's not just unfair. In a lot of places, it's illegal. In the US, that's illegal. You can't not hire somebody based off of their gender, their race, their age, their zip code, right? You can have, AI integrated into your banking system and be denied loans simply because of the area that you live in. Is that fair? No. It should be based off of your ability to repay that loan, not simply because you were raised somewhere. I grew up very, very, very poor. It's not fair if I were to be denied a loan simply because of the zip code I lived in when I was younger. It's not right. Opacity. Again, if that applicant is denied a loan for credit, they need to be able to understand why.